The first story, the abduction of a girl by a jinni. A true tale of a girl beloved by a jinni. The events unfold in the Ha'il region of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where the unfortunate girl lived with her elderly father, whom she cared for devotedly. One day, a jinni fell in love with her and pursued her until he possessed her, transforming her life into a living nightmare. She was plagued by numerous nightmares, in which she saw the jinni abusing and violating her. Over time, her hair began to turn gray in an inexplicable manner, prompting her father to sense something was gravely amiss or that she was possessed. He summoned a religious man to recite the Quran over her. As the man began the recitation, the anticipated reaction occurred. The girl started screaming, convulsing violently, and the jinni began speaking through her, issuing threats to anyone who dared approach her. Before vanishing, he declared, "I will leave now but will return for her to exact my revenge on all of you." The second story. The murdered wife. The white cat, a bizarre and heinous murder case, where a spouse is considered a kind of fortune, thus we must accept our fates. Before embarking on such a relationship, both parties should not rely solely on emotions but should seek transparency and inquiry about their partner, for there might be aspects of them we cannot bear. This brings us to our tale. There was a stunningly beautiful girl named Carmen, whose father was one of the town's wealthiest men. Despite her beauty and wealth, Carmen suffered from an illness since childhood, and her father's riches couldn't procure a cure for her. Consequently, her father isolated her from people, confining her within their home for her protection. Despite the closed doors preventing Carmen from leaving, fate brought her to Philip, a handsome young man who fell deeply in love with her, seeing only her captivating beauty. Carmen, in turn, adored Philip, yet no one disclosed her severe health condition to him. The lovers married, but soon after, Carmen's health deteriorated further, and her condition worsened with time. Initially, Philip cared for her diligently, but as time passed and the illness dragged on, he grew weary and distanced himself, spending most of his time away from home. Philip's absences increased, and news of his whereabouts reached Carmen, as did the whispers of his new affair. He had indeed established a relationship with another woman, leaving his wife bedridden to visit this other woman. Carmen, despite the emotional toll, bore this knowledge outwardly and continued because of her profound love for him. Philip habitually visited his mistress every night, but each time he arrived, a white cat would appear at the window, glaring at them with a gaze that seemed to curse them with its intense anger and hatred. Its strange cries frightened the mistress, who despised the cat. On the fateful night, Carmen's illness was so severe that she implored Philip to stay with her, yearning for his company. However, Philip made an excuse and left her to battle her illness and sorrow alone, heading to his lover. As usual, the white cat appeared, but this time it moved restlessly and meowed loudly, disturbing the mistress greatly and infuriating her to the point where she demanded Philip to kill it. He complied, stabbing the cat in the chest with a knife. The cat fled, screeching in a way that terrified them both and left them with a strange feeling of dread. Philip returned home as usual, only to find Carmen lying on the floor, shockingly, with the same knife used on the cat lodged in her chest. This horrific sight plunged him into a personal hell, where he spent the rest of his life tormented by his vile acts of betrayal and the murder of the woman who had loved him deeply. The third story. In an ancient hospital, erected centuries ago upon the ruins of an old monastery, Nurse Maria worked the night shift in the emergency department. The hospital was shrouded in numerous tales and legends, suggesting that the tormented spirits of the monks who perished in the old monastery never departed. Maria, initially a skeptic, began sensing something unusual recently. One night, the emergency ward was nearly deserted, and the hallways were eerily dark and quiet. Late into the night, Maria decided to take a brief respite. As she wandered through the corridors, she noticed a red light above one of the rooms flickering unusually. Approaching slowly, a shiver ran down her spine. When she opened the door, the room was empty except for a faint mist seeping from the walls. Suddenly, she felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. She turned swiftly, but no one was there. Trying to dismiss the incident, she returned to her desk, but mysterious footsteps echoed through the corridors, approaching and receding. In the following days, strange occurrences escalated. Maria found doors ajar that she had locked, and medical equipment inexplicably moved from their places. Other doctors and nurses started witnessing similar phenomena, and fear began to creep into their hearts. One night, as Maria was ending her shift, she felt something tug at her from behind. Turning around, she came face to face with a nurse in an old-fashioned uniform, her skeletal visage terrifying, her eyes void of life. Maria tried to scream, but the sound was caught in her throat. The skeletal nurse advanced slowly, extending a hand as if to drag Maria into another realm. At that moment, Maria lost consciousness. When she awoke, she found herself in a hospital room, surrounded by doctors and nurses. They tried to calm her, insisting she had been hallucinating due to stress. But Maria knew what she had seen was real. In the days that followed, she sought to escape her horrific memories by moving to a new city and starting anew at a modern, secure hospital. Yet, the terror she experienced at the old hospital clung to her. Nightly, she awoke to nightmares, seeing the skeletal nurse wandering dark corridors, slowly approaching her. After several months, Maria began to feel gradually reassured. However, one day, as she walked through the new hospital's hallways, she heard a familiar, eerie sound behind her, the same slow, haunting footsteps from the old hospital. She turned quickly but found no one there. Resolving to calm herself, she resumed her duties, ignoring the sound that had returned to haunt her. The following night, during her shift, Maria received a frantic call from the emergency room. The voice on the other end was filled with terror, and faint whispers were barely audible. Upon arriving at the room, she found it unnaturally dark and foggy. Suddenly, the skeletal nurse appeared in the corner, her empty eyes gleaming in the darkness. Maria backed away slowly, trying to remain calm, but the skeletal nurse began to move towards her. A chill enveloped Maria, as though life was being drained from her. She tried to flee, but the nurse was quicker, grasping her with a cold hand. In that instant, Maria felt sharp pains in her chest and collapsed, unconscious. When she regained consciousness, she was in a hospital room, surrounded by doctors and nurses who tried to reassure her again, saying she had suffered a stress-induced heart attack. Yet Maria knew something else was at play. She was certain the skeletal nurse was trying to take her to the other side. Determined to end the nightmare, Maria investigated the old hospital's history. She discovered it was built on the ruins of a 17th-century monastery, where dark, mysterious rituals were once performed. The skeletal nurse was said to be the abbess who tormented lost souls, and when the monastery was demolished, her tormented spirit transferred to the old hospital, haunting all who entered. Realizing that the only way to end the curse was to confront the skeletal nurse and free her tormented spirit, Maria returned to the abandoned hospital, armed with an ancient book containing exorcism rituals. In the heart of the dark hospital, surrounded by anguished spirits, Maria confronted the skeletal nurse once more. Reciting the rituals from the book, she battled the spectral entity. The struggle was harrowing, but Maria persisted. With the final words of the ritual, the hospital trembled, and the spirits wailed. Maria felt the skeletal nurse's grip loosen, and slowly, the dark spirit vanished, leaving the hospital in silence. Maria emerged from the hospital, knowing she had freed the tormented souls and restored peace to the place. She returned to her life, aware that true horror lies in the strength of spirit and the will to confront and conquer fear. After this ordeal, Maria resigned and left the hospital, but the terror never truly left her. Every night, she saw the skeletal nurse in her dreams, slowly approaching, waiting for the opportune moment to claim her. The old hospital remained closed, becoming a shrine to the terrifying tales told about it. Yet, Nurse Maria never forgot that night, the sound of the skeletal nurse's footsteps haunting her wherever she went. The fourth story. I was returning from a midnight wedding in a neighboring village. Taking the main road would consume a lot of time, but our village has a shortcut that goes through the fields, though it's laden with many legends I had often laughed at. I decided to take the rural path, which was indeed very dark. After walking a bit, visibility was poor due to the darkness. I took out my phone to use its flashlight, but to my surprise, it was out of charge. Determined, I continued and told myself I wouldn't be scared of any superstitions. I walked about halfway when suddenly I felt someone walking behind me. I turned my head, but no one was there. I walked a bit further and heard footsteps. I stopped, and the sound ceased. Each time I moved, I heard steps in sync with mine. My heart began to pound, and I started to sweat despite the winter chill. I shouted, "Who's there?" But there was no answer. I raised my voice, "Who's there?" Suddenly, I felt a chilling cold and a sharp slap on the back of my neck, the likes of which I had never felt before. I began to call out, "Who?" My voice faltered, and I remembered all the tales people told. I ran quickly, but something tripped me, and I fell to the ground, my clothes covered in dirt. From the force of the fall, I couldn't get up, but suddenly, I found a hand reaching out to me. I grasped it and stood up, finding a young man smiling at me, saying, "They got you, didn't they, poor guy?" I asked, "Who are they, and who are you?" He replied, "I was walking and heard you shouting, 'Who?' So I approached and found you on the ground. I thought the spirits had their fun with you. But I know they enjoy playing pranks on others. With so few people taking this path, they relish the chance to find someone to tease." I looked at him and asked, "How did you know?" He glanced around and said, "Well, my friend was the one pranking you." I decided to join in the fun and pushed you towards the canal while he laughed. I ran to the other side, cursing them all the way home. I fell asleep in my muddy clothes and vowed never to take that path again. I closed my eyes and turned off the light, but then I heard a voice saying, "I let you two have your fun first. Now it's my turn."
Brought to you by audio.ai.
The fifth story. The Gates of Hell. This story is one of the forbidden tales, so if you're easily frightened, please refrain from reading it. Additionally, this is a very important warning. Children and young people under the age of 18 are strictly prohibited from reading this story. Let's begin. My name is Dr. Hassam. I am 36 years old, and I live with my father. My mother passed away when I was 10 years old. I have no siblings and my life is very ordinary, moving from the hospital to my clinic and then back home. I am a psychiatrist and, by the grace of God, a very skilled doctor. Every day, I encounter patients from all walks of life, and I experience some very strange situations that many people wouldn't believe or understand because the most difficult illness is a psychological one. It's extremely challenging. One day, a 20-year-old girl came to my clinic. She was very beautiful. I asked her what she was suffering from, and she said, "Doctor, I need to tell you something, but I have one request before I speak." I asked her what the request was, and she replied, "You have to believe me." I assured her, "I am here to believe you, so don't worry." She said, "I see red eyes every night before I sleep, and every time I turn on the light, they disappear. Once, I saw the eyes right in front of me, and inside them, I saw real events happening. I saw an apartment burning, and when I woke up, the apartment next door was on fire. I saw a man committing suicide, a woman killing her husband, and people dressed in black holding children and killing them. The last thing I saw was me killing someone and then killing myself. My dreams always come true." I asked her who she saw herself killing, but she said she didn't know because the face wasn't clear. She continued, "Doctor, I know you might not believe me, but if you want to, I can show you many things that will happen. Today, a girl will die in a horrible way, and her killer will go to the police but won't receive a fair punishment. Sadly, justice for the girl will be lost. I asked her why she didn't try to save the girl, and she replied, "Doctor, no matter what I do, I can't change anything. I've tried to help many people, but no one believes me." I asked her what would happen to the girl, and she said, "In my dream, she was going up the stairs when a drugged man abducted her, raped her, and threw her from the rooftop." I suggested we go to the girl's house, but she didn't know where she lived. I told her that if such a crime happened, it would surely be on the news. She responded, "Doctor, you don't believe me. I will leave now, and in 2 days, you'll see that my words are true." I advised her, "If you want my help, listen to me. These are just dreams, and dreams are the actions of devils. You believe in God, and everything has a reason and a time. You fear the future because of your past, and that makes you think you're predicting events. Write down your dreams, and if they come true, we'll discuss it. If what you see in your dreams happens in reality, I promise to do everything I can to help you. But first, try this, write your dreams and see if they happen exactly as you saw." She looked at me strangely and said, "I knew you'd say that, but I will prove that everything I say is true." She left, and I went home, pondering her words. The girl spoke with such confidence. I fell asleep and had a strange dream about our conversation. When I woke up startled, my father entered my room and asked what was wrong. I told him it was just a dream and reassured him that I was fine. After he left, I thought to myself that it was just a dream, perhaps influenced by my thoughts before sleeping. I eventually went back to sleep. The next morning, at the hospital, I saw the same girl from my dream being rushed into surgery, but unfortunately, she died. When I asked how she died, the coroner said she was raped and thrown from a rooftop. I was shocked. The girl's words had come true exactly as she described. There had to be an explanation. 2 days later, the girl returned to my clinic and asked, "Doctor, did you see that I was right?" I admitted that I did and requested that she tell me everything that happens to her, step by step. If you want the rest of the story, write to me in the comments.